Order. I'll ask Commissioner Harden if he'll lead us in the prayer and invocation.
Okay, let us pray. And Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for your goodness and your mercy and all the kindness that you show us every day. And Lord, I just ask as we go throughout the county's business that you would lead and guide us and direct us, Lord, and guide us in the way that you would have us to go. And these things we ask in your name, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. I'd like to welcome everyone for coming out tonight, and if you would like to speak, you can speak during Citizens to be Heard, either one time at the beginning or one time at the end. Please fill out a speaker's card with Paige, and also you can fill out a speaker's card to speak on any individual agenda item. Any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend we just remove item 9 altogether.
Okay.
I think we beat that dead horse enough, and I don't see any need to ratify a letter we voted 5-0 to send, so I'd like to see us just pull it off.
Okay.
It's not going to do anybody any good to talk about it anymore.
Any other changes?
I'm going to be pulling on the consent agenda items 1 and 6, I believe.
1 and 6 on consent.
Approval of minutes.
Okay. And yep, I've got a letter of support. Hopefully you guys got a copy of that to support Capital City Youth Services grant application. I'll be doing that under my agenda item. Any other changes?
Motion to approve agenda as amended.
Second. Any discussion?
All of my notes.
You need a minute?
No.
Okay. All in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay. Paige, any citizens to be heard?
Page, citizens to be heard.
I think Ms. Peck's filling the card out now.
Okay. Ms. Dana Peck.
Hold on.
I'm here about the Panacea Corporation. I'm awfully glad that you are not going to roll this around and talk about it. But as I would understand it then, you're on the record as with your vote as of March the 23rd, which was a unanimous vote to oppose this bill as written because it is a burden to the people of Wakulla County financially. And so if it is a burden to the people of Wakulla County financially, what are you going to do about it? And I think you do have an opportunity to do something about it because the bill hasn't gone to the House yet. And you can say, don't hurt the people of Wakulla County by, for starters, making them pay for an election, as the bill seems to be written, that they can't vote in. For a bill that would add another layer of government that taxpayers are going to fund, either the taxpayers in Wakulla County or the taxpayers in Panacea, or both, for having support for or opposition to a bill that would increase taxes, because it's bound to increase taxes. You're not going to be able to run a city without increasing taxes. And for having a bill that is anti-business. Ask the businesses in Panacea if they want to be taxed. And you can argue that the people of Panacea are going to make this decision, and that may be true. But the way I hear things, a lot of you are claiming to be Tea Party people. And I don't know pure, true, honest Tea Party people who are for more government, higher taxes, and are anti-business. Anyone who would support that and call themselves a Tea Partier, in my book, would be a Tea Party pretender. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. That is all of our citizens to be heard. Next, we'll move into awards and presentation. Mr. Mark Dickinson, see here? Anyone here on his behalf?
Can we just say, when is Amnesty Day, Brent?
I can.
Okay.
Very important.
Thank you, Commissioners. Bruce Ashley with Keep Wakulla County Beautiful. We have twice a year an Amnesty Day for hazardous waste in our county, and the county works with Keep Wakulla Beautiful to bring that to the citizens, and we'll have it at Trice Lane at ESG office space over there. and we'll take all kinds of chemicals, any kind of chemical, any kind of fluorescent lights, appliances, electronics, things of that nature. We will not be able to take tires. Tires are accepted at the dump by our provider, Waste Pro, on a daily basis if you want to get them out of your yard, so they'll take those. But we look forward to this. We average probably 200 to 300 cars each of these events bringing stuff through. Paint, chemicals, again, all those household hazardous items that you've wondered what to do with.
Batteries,
Yes, all types of batteries.
ballast for fluorescent lights.
Ballast and fluorescent fixtures, yes.
Computers, electronics.
Computers, electronics, yes.
This is a good time to get rid of your old monitor for your computer.
And this is for residential only.
Residential
not
only.
commercial,
That's
not
correct.
painters, not folks
That's
like
correct.
that.
This is for our household citizens
residential
to bring
only.
all of their
Like,
material.
is there a do you guys set some sort of limit on the number of paint cans you'll take
No.
just to discourage? Okay.
No, but we ask that this is for private citizens.
And this
It's
only
not for
happens
commercial.
once a
This-
year.
This Saturday,
This Saturday
what
at,
time?
it starts at 9 o'clock in the morning.
9 o'clock in the morning.
And we
we
usually have
partner-
cars lined up just before that.
Right.
And we've been doing this for years and years and years. We partner with Jefferson County.
Yes.
And the DEP grant pays
Right.
for this, and it's once a year, right?
Yes, well, twice.
Twice a
We
year.
have it twice.
This is a
April and October.
golden opportunity to get rid of some of that stuff laying around.
Yeah, we don't
You
want
have
that
no other
stuff
way to
laying
get rid of it.
around in Wakulla County.
And that's at
Bring it
Trice
to us.
Lane, basically across from the community center. Trice
Right
Lane.
across from the community center
Road
there.
department.
Yeah, we have a drive-through process and stations to unload each of those items, and we have good ROTC youth and others from the community helping out that day.
Very good.
So I think it's very important that medicines that people may have in their house that have expired, please don't flush them down the toilets. Please bring them to this hazardous waste and have them properly taken care of. We don't need that in our water supply. Thank you.
Is
And
it true that Walgreens takes those too, or a drug, I think?
Yeah, I think some of the...
Sheriff's
Couple of
Department has this
drugstores,
drug?
but the sheriff's office has a receiving box in the front lobby, and you can bring medications there every day of the year.
Right. And if you're going there for whatever else of the hazardous waste, bring those medicines along.
Good point.
Right.
Thank you.
And I have a
If we
couple
get
of-
fireworks, we'll deliver those
Okay.
to the sheriff's office, which works with the fire marshal to do away with those properly.
We used to do tires, but we lost that
Yes.
waste tire grant.
Right.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Back when I had Cleve's job.
Next, we'll invite Mr. Ray Kirkland with FDOT.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Ray Kirkland. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation. Today I'm going to be talking with y'all about the FTP, which is the Florida Transportation Plan, plan update, and give a quick overview. In front of you I also have some material and a brochure. If any of the public out, there's some more brochures out front on the table there that we've left.
Just so everybody knows, we don't have any roads in this county that are SIS designated, right?
No, sir.
Do we have any that are on the Florida Transportation
Yes,
Plan?
the Florida Transportation Plan is a planning process for all the counties everywhere.
Sorry.
Okay. First of all, talk a little bit. The Florida Transportation Long Range Plan is the state's longest long-range transportation plan. The FTP serves as a transportation plan for all of Florida, not just the Department of Transportation. It establishes the policy framework for allocating the state and federal transportation funds which flow through the department's 5-year work program. If y'all have any questions, stop me, or I'll go through and you'll have any other.
How does this dovetail in with the CRTPA then?
On the CRTPA, they'll have actually also input on this plan here that they have to follow with the plan also on it. A little bit about the SIS, which at this time there's not any SIS facilities in the county, but we have to go through this. You can have input on the criteria which will require, that there's certain requirements that it has to meet for the SIS facilities, and this is what we're going through is the policies and guidance for the planning and implementation of new roads and all. So if you have any input on some new SIS policies or something that would help you get some SIS roads in this county, you can also comment here on our website once we get to that part. But basically it talks about the designation criteria, the needs assessment, prioritizing process on the SIS, and the finance strategy that goes through with the SIS roads. Looking ahead, both of these plans are running parallel together, the Florida Transportation Plan and the SIS plan. Both of them are to be updated by the end of the year, which is 2015. And what's going on now, we're going out and giving partner briefings like we're doing here to the counties, to the TPOs and that type, anyone that requests them. We also had a Vision Summit Regional Forum which was completed in Destin. Everyone in our district got an invitation to go to that and their input at Destin. Regional workshops we'll have this summer. We'll have another one in our district that you'll get an invitation to, and the draft FTP-CIS policy plan for public comment will be in the fall. We'll come back and have another round of meetings and present it, and then we'll have public comments on that through the same type of meetings, and the final CIS policy plan will be adopted by the end of 2015. There's a website that's been set up for your comments. You can go and read more information on it. The address is FloridaTransportationPlan.com, and at the top right-hand corner there's a place for your comments that you can go and add comments. If you want to talk about the Florida Transportation Plan or the CIS, either one of them, you can go in and add your comments and all there. Ms. Melanie Weaver Carr is the Office of Policy Planning and DOT in Tallahassee. She's over both of these plans and is the contact person for this plan update. And like I say, there's a brochure. There's some more on that table here. It kind of gives an overview like we just did. And we're out looking for just public input on the transportation plan, what you see, the future, and that type.
And you say this does tie into the local MPO's plan? They have the same projects or what?
Ryan's here. He'll help answer that one.
My name is Ryan Fetchko. I'm a sub-consultant for Florida Department of Transportation District 3.
You can move the microphone up, yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
That might work better. The FTP is just a guidance document to support funding and best funding practices for the state and municipalities to follow. The CRTPA will follow some of these goals and visions and incorporate them into their processes.
So this is an umbrella kind of over the MPOs, but it's just much more broad. It doesn't say 4-lane this road or...
Correct, yeah. This is more of strategy and implementation guides to realize the goals of the state.
Mr. Randy, I thought that we were already on the CIS plan. I thought we had been accepted into that.
Nope, no road in Wakulla County is on CIS. We tried to get it, but because we didn't think we'd get 319 funded any other way, but we found a way. So, and the drawback with CIS too is the speed limit was going to have to be set too high for downtown Crawford. But anyway, no, we don't have anything on CIS. That's for like interstates, railroads, ports, airports, stuff like that.
Any further comments or questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You want to add on?
I'd like to dovetail in, that seems to be my buzzword tonight, but the Thursday, which is this Thursday, 6 to 7:30 at the Senior Center, the CRTPA is holding its Connections 2040 Mobility Plan Workshop. Right now, today we just adopted the cost feasible plan, which means there's money to pay for it, and we identified projects there's not money to pay for. 319 is on there all the way down to the high school. But this is a chance for citizens to have input on this long-term mobility plan. There's a bunch of stuff in there for Wakulla County, and there's going to be 2 workshops. This is the first one, and there'll be another one months later. But anyway, this Thursday, 6 to 7:30 at the Senior Center.
Very good. Thank you.
Big fun for everybody.
Next, I'd like to invite Miss Marva Preston to come up and speak on behalf of NAMI.
Commissioners, thank you for having us today. My name is Marva Preston. I'm presently the president of NAMI Wakulla. And we're here today. First, I'd like to acknowledge real quick some of the executive board members from NAMI, Ms. Cheryl Creel, Esther Ellis, and Ms. Charlene Lanier. On behalf of the Wakulla County, we would like to present this proclamation declaring May as Mental Health Awareness Month. May has been declared National Mental Health Awareness Month for the purpose of increasing attention to the fact that 1 in 4 adults, or 60 million Americans, 1 in 5 children under the ages of 13 to 18 live with the burden of mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, and other related debilitating illnesses that can strain not only the individual but also their family, families, their friends, and their colleagues. Data suggests that less than half of children and adults with diagnosable mental health illness receive treatment. Addressing the complex mental health needs of children, youth, and families today is fundamental to the future of the state of Florida. The need for comprehensive, coordinated mental health services for children, youth, and families places our community in a critical need of responsibility. For many, getting help, it starts just with conversation. It's up to all of us to know the signs of mental health issues and to admit to lending a hand to those who are struggling. Too often, shame and stigma leave people feeling like there's no place to turn. It is essential to make sure that they know that when they're asking for help, it is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. Effective treatment for those individuals with mental health conditions can show that they can recover and lead full, productive lives. It is equally important to prevent behavioral health problems before they occur. Such intervention can reduce and or delay the onset of such conditions. Each business, school, government agency, law enforcement agency, healthcare provider, and citizen, we all share the burden of mental health problems, and we all have a responsibility to promote mental health wellness and support prevention efforts. Whereas NAMI Wakulla, an affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and the Wakulla County Board of Commissioners recognize that behavioral problems remain a serious health concern, and we call upon all Wakulla County citizens, all agencies, all organizations, and providers to raise mental health awareness and to continue to help support Wakulla County residents to live longer and healthier lives through improved availability of behavioral health interventions in this community. So we are requesting and we're proclaiming that May 2015 will be proclaimed as Mental Health Awareness Month.
Wonderful. Thank you. And we do have that scheduled for approval later in the agenda. Can't imagine that would have a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next, I would like to invite everyone in Wakulla County. You're invited to the Wakulla News Centennial Celebration and the Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners reopening ceremony for Azalea Park. The News is more than 100 years old, and we would like you to join us to make this a grand celebratory event in beautiful Azalea Park, Thursday, April 30th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. We'll be kicking off the Reader's Choice, and that's the Wakulla News is kicking off the Reader's Choice. Restaurants will be offering a little taste of Wakulla, some with samples, and others offering dinners and samplers for sale. Wakulla County Business Fair drawings and giveaways, informational booths, special guest speakers, live music. Everyone is invited. Contact Linda Kinsey at the Wakulla News for a booth or vendor information.
Will there be any politicians speaking?
Just you.
Not me. Got a bet riding on this one.
Also, Chairman, the surface will probably be partially complete by that point in time due to the weather. We've had delays, and so therefore we're hoping to have it done, but more than likely it won't be done until then.
Will the park be open, though, for pictures?
The park will be
for
open
the
for pictures.
For the prom.
There's people walking in the park right now.
Very good. It's looking good.
Yeah, it looks
Just
really
need
good.
Need the topping.
Still got to put the lights up, though, right?
Yeah, we got lights that'll be coming.
Did you say that you put a shield down to keep the pine roots
Yes,
from
we did,
pushing
so we
up
don't
there?
have to go through this again.
Yeah. Very good. And Howard, you have a
Yeah,
couple
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
items?
So, some time ago, not that long ago, I gave a little presentation on the e-cigarettes, the vapor things, and talked about how some of these chemicals that are used for flavorings and et cetera are not good to take into your lungs in the small micro ways they're taken in. But so as a follow-up to that, there's the use of these devices amongst middle and high school students has tripled from 2013 to 2014. And bringing the share of the high school students that use them is nationwide to 13%. more students using them than are smoking the traditional cigarettes. I just wanted to point it out as an ongoing health problem. The other is today marks the 5th anniversary of the BP oil spill, and we still do not know fully how much damage has been done. And from what I'm hearing from the scientific community, it's going to take possibly another decade or more before we know.
Thank you. All right, now we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item number 1 and 6.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Howard, I think you wanted to pull item number 1.
Gotcha.
Is it about the vote on the liquor store?
It is.
Yeah, the minutes were wrong.
While he's
If I
pulling
could,
that
Howard,
up,
that's-
Hang
Mr.
on,
Davis.
Hold on, let's let
him-
Dr. Kessler.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, let me just pull this up. I lost some of the notes on this meeting, but, so the item is reflected in the planning and zoning item that dealt with the piece of property, conditional use at 98 and Spring Creek Highway, that it was, the motion passed with a 4-1, Commissioner Kessler, Merritt, Moore, and Hardin voting for the motion, and then there was a correction to that in our minutes that said the motion passed 3-2, with Commissioner Kessler, Merritt, Hardin voting for, and Commissioner Thomas and Moore opposing the motion. And I didn't speak out at the meeting, but I went back and I listened to the segment of the meeting multiple times. Other people have as well. And I don't know whether Commissioner Moore voted to uphold the planning and zoning decision, not to uphold it, or if he voted twice. I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that after the vote was called and announced by the chairman as 4-1, I did ask the question, who was that one? Mm-hmm. To which I believe Commissioner Merritt said Ralph, and Ralph said me.
Correct.
And you also said you didn't hear that it was a different vote. And that's all
Later,
that was...
not at that moment, but later when it was brought back up.
Okay.
Correct.
So that's what was said at that point in time. Then the chairman went on to other items on the agenda, asked for the county attorney if there were any items, and the county attorney did not have any. Went on to the county administrator, who said yes, he had items. The first item he presented, it was not an item that needed a vote. Went on to the second item, and after all that transpired, more than 2 minutes had lapsed, and at that point Commissioner Moore addressed the taker of the minutes and said, I joined Ralph on that, and I assume referring to the vote. But that is not the way to change a vote, and especially after we had gone on to other agenda items according to Robert's rules, at least what I was able to find out, both, and there may be some discussion on that. But I think the correct vote is a 4-1 vote, as announced by the chairman, and I think it should be written that way, and there should be no confusion.
If I can address that, as soon as the vote was taken, I tapped the chairman that my vote was with him, that we both voted together on that, and as soon as everybody quit talking, I announced that my vote was with Mr. Thomas, Chairman
Kind of the
Thomas?
way I recall it, and I haven't watched the tape, but I may be
Yeah.
wrong.
Well,
He did tap me. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
it was
you know,
before or after David started talking. I think the important thing is, I called a 4-1 vote. I thought I heard a 4-1 vote. I announced that it was a 4-1 vote, and then, you know, at some point, regardless of what time, there was a discrepancy, and so that was brought back up. You know, we discussed it or had ample opportunity to discuss it, and no objection was raised to that at that time. And so, as I understand it, then that would be consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Now, had an objection been raised, then we could have revoted to consider that, whether that vote would have been added.
well, in order to raise an objection, I would have had to go and listen to the tape, as I think a responsibility. You had called the vote as a 4-1. You had gone on to other agenda items.
Correct.
That's how we've always dealt with this. If we move on to other agenda items, that vote cannot be changed. I mean, you know,
So you're saying you were in error by not hearing Jerry, not that Jerry changed his vote?
Well, I don't like to say I was in error because I announced
You know what I mean.
4-1.
You-
know, maybe I didn't hear him.
You didn't hear him, so
Yeah,
that's what I should have.
exactly. But had I not said passes 4-1, then, you know, I would have been in error at that point. But I made it clear, my understanding of the vote was a 4-1 vote. And so, at that point, he did address it, maybe not immediately address it, but he addressed it, and then there was no objection to changing it. We all clearly knew that the minutes were being changed as a result of the change.
well, I didn't know that. I heard Commissioner Moore speak to the taker of the minutes. I did not hear this board say, oh, okay, we agree that your vote can be changed, or the board voting that the vote can be changed. I don't think that is a proper way
Okay.
to change the vote, for a commissioner to address the taker of the minutes and say, on an item that was 2 agenda items prior, or 3 prior, I was with the chairman on that.
So what is your solution? What are you
I
proposing?
think it doesn't change the consequence of the vote, but I think it's more correct for if we're going to stick with what's happened in the past, going on to other agenda items, then the motion should stand at, the vote should stand at 4-1.
Can I ask a question before we go too much further with this? And I don't want to beat this into the dirt, okay? At CD times 712 is when Richard Harden called the question. That says 4-1 vote. At CD times 714, Commissioner Moore requested clarification of the vote, which was 2 minutes later, and is the exact same moment, CD times 714, that David started talking about the thing. So I don't think David talked and then Jerry came back, because it says... if
No,
you
he
notice
absolutely did.
the date stamp.
No, that's wrong.
He did.
Yeah, no,
He did talk a little bit.
The
David
county
did talk.
commission, the county attorney was asked, she said,
Okay.
no, the county administrator then went on and did 2 of his items, okay? So that actually, you can go back and listen to it, actually occurred.
I don't have the best memory. So
Now, I
I'm
do
arguing
agree,
about
but as I recall, Jerry did tap me that it was a mistake prior to David speaking, but we'd have to go back and look at that.
Doesn't matter
so-
to a hill of beans, because it doesn't change anything.
So you want us to revise the minutes to reflect a 4-1 vote. County Attorney, is that required? Did we follow the correct process?
Well, you're both citing different sections of Robert's Rules. There is a general rule that is in Robert's Rules that also embodied in your meeting policy that a member has the right to change his or her vote up until the time the vote is finally announced. However, after that, a member can change their vote only by permission of the board, which can be given by general consent, meaning that nobody objects.
So the
if
fact that
somebody
we didn't
objects, you can
object
vote on it.
actually granted permission, you're saying?
That it could be interpreted that way. However, Commissioner Kessler is also raising the point that he didn't understand that the minutes were going to be changed. I can't sitting here tell you whether his vote was a no or whether he understood it. It's a factual determination.
There was not a change in my vote. I tend to be quiet. My wife says that I should speak up more. But in that vote, I voted with Ralph immediately. Ralph did not hear what I said. So when he announced a 4-1, I tapped him, and surely the video will show that I immediately tapped him. Somebody else started talking.
It doesn't show that.
And without interrupting them,
No.
as soon as they
He had tapped
finished,
me.
I told
Yeah,
the,
it shows him tapping, but not
so,
immediately.
I tapped Ralph.
Tapping
And
was
as
after
soon
the
as,
next one.
as soon as the conversation stopped, I
we had gone
spoke to
on
the
to
girl
the
and I
next
said,
thing.
wait a minute, I actually did vote with, Chairman.
Well,
Is the
given
root
that the-
discussion whether he changed his
But
vote?
it wasn't,
I don't
it
think he
wasn't a
changed his
change.
vote.
I made no
Yeah,
change.
whatever, I said at the beginning of this, I went and listened to that tape multiple times. I cannot say with 100% certainty if Commissioner Moore voted to support the planning and zoning. I cannot say if he voted to not support the planning and zoning, or that he voted twice. I can't make that determination from going over and listening to it. But we had moved on to another item.
No, we had not moved on to another item. Other people were talking.
We had moved on to another item, and if you want to pull this thing off and bring it back so that everyone can watch that and you can see what happened.
They can also watch me tap Commissioner Thomas that he didn't hear my vote. So there was not a change in the vote. I voted with Commissioner Thomas. No change in my vote. He just did not
So
hear
you're
the
not
vote.
stating he changed his vote, you're basically saying we got a discrepancy when the vote was recorded.
I cannot say with certainty how Commissioner Moore voted, and that brings up another issue that's, I think, very important, okay, because each of our votes are supposed to be recorded of how we come down on this thing, okay, by state, okay?
Does it mean anything that he just told us that he voted with Ralph?
It means whether we're going to follow our procedures or not, okay? Following our procedures, we cannot, a commissioner cannot just say, wait a second, you know, we've gone on to 3 other items on the agenda, and the commissioner can't say, you know, I really voted with the chairman, and I want to make sure that,
Right.
that's not the way it flows.
Well, and certainly we could always do a roll call vote if there's a discrepancy. I think in this case, had I said motion passed, it could have passed 3-2, 4-1, or 5-0. No one would have known what the count was. The fact that I specified that it was 4-1, that gives each of us the opportunity to agree or disagree, raise an exception to that. When he felt that he had not been heard and he made a change, we still had the opportunity to raise an objection to that vote, but that was not done.
And I felt that since it was already on to other agenda items, that it was not applicable. Why am I going to be objecting to something that's not according to Robert's rules? Okay? So, unless it was brought up for a vote of the board, I think it's important. It doesn't change the outcome of this vote, but I think it's important that you're required, or our minutes taker is required to put each name down, or unless it's a 5-0 vote. But when it's a split vote, each one of us are identified of how we came down on that issue, okay? And when you announced the vote, you gave ample opportunity for people to speak up. You know, I asked, you know, I wasn't clear who that one vote was. I asked, okay? You all chimed in. But Commissioner Moore did not at that point in time say, I voted with you. That's a mistake. That would have been fine.
Maybe I was waiting on you to finish asking Mr. Thomas about how the vote went. Maybe you were the person I was waiting on before I could address the minute taker.
That would have been fine if you had spoken after my question. It would have been fine.
Well, we're going to still need a motion on this item, on item number 1. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to, well, go ahead.
Good.
You pulled it.
Well, go ahead.
Motion to approve the minutes. I mean, I don't think it amounts to a hill of beans, and I think his intention was to vote with Ralph. That's what I think.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I second that motion.
All right. Any citizens? Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1.
And so, Mr. Chairman, on this, just piggybacking on this item before I go on to the next one, or maybe I'll bring it up at the end, and that is going to be possibly electronic voting.
Okay,
Okay?
very good. Next, I believe you also pulled item number 6.
Yes. So is a person to speak on it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so do we do them first or what?
Well, we need let's get a motion.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a motion to approve, but I want to have some discussion from Louis.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and second, Mr. John Schuff. There he is.
I basically just pulled a card when I heard that Commissioner Kessler had pulled the item off the consent agenda, and I just wanted to, I've worked a lot with Summer on the changes to the ordinance, and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great.
Or I
so-
could either go over in general, the items that we...
Well, did you want to say something?
No, I said, well, I don't think we need to do that.
Well, I'm not sure.
I know you'd called earlier today trying to get some answers about what we were working on, what the chamber was working on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what has been accomplished here. I'm not is this the... Let me ask, I want
Sure.
to start by asking Louis first, so... Okay, so Louis, is this the county's changes in ordinance coming forward, or is this what the chamber has recommended to be changed?
This is, well, this is, just to clarify, this is a request to advertise. We will be bringing back the ordinance at a later time if we get approval to advertise. But the board directed us to work with the chamber at a workshop in April of last year.
Right.
And we worked closely with Mr. Schuff on these requested changes. But yeah, this was board direction to work with to address the chamber's concerns.
This came out of a board workshop on
Yes.
April 7th,
Understand.
2014.
Understand. So what were the major... Because I'm a little confused. It started off where some people were saying that we had too much restriction on our sign ordinance and wanted to loosen it up. And then we have this thing coming forward which seems to do both loosening and tightening to small degrees. I don't understand what the need was to come forward with this ordinance.
Yeah,
I
and
motioned to approve it. I might not be voting that way.
Okay.
And perhaps Mr. Schuff can clarify, but it was after we readopted the sign regulations, I think a couple of years ago, that he had brought forth this item and requested a workshop, and he addressed a number of issues. And probably the biggest one is to treat signs within the town of Crawfordville differently, to actually become more restrictive in Crawfordville, and then to provide a lot of clarifications and other changes throughout the rest of the county.
And also it revised, because I know I've personally signed and sealed some pretty small signs for people putting them on. This raises the level where you have to have an engineer involved. It's just a bunch of small tweaks, it looks like to me. I mean, they're all listed right here exactly what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, for example, single occupancy buildings outside Crawfordville area district are limited to 128 square feet, and there's differences if you're inside the Crawfordville area district, I guess to kind of keep the number of signs down in the town core.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I lost all of my notes on several of these topics, so I had pretty extensive things here. But it just didn't seem like, to go through and do a revision of our sign ordinance, that these were major things that had to be addressed. It just seemed like we're going through a lot of work in advertising and public hearing. Or, it seems like if there were really major things that needed to be addressed, identify those, and let's discuss that and let's potentially address them. But I don't see why this is coming forward.
I think there are some major things. If you
Okay.
remember, our current sign ordinance that's in place today, I voted against it. And the reason I did is we made a lot of existing businesses and brand new businesses non-conforming with the ordinance that we just adopted.
Yes.
For example, our current ordinance says that if you have a freestanding sign, you can't have a roof sign. And so, ride down the Bells right there, and we've got the bakery shop that just opened up. They're not in conformance with our sign
This
ordinance.
changes that.
This changes that. Well, it changes the threshold of that, and you provide you get a certain amount of signage, and you can choose, do you want, so many square feet on the roof, so many square feet on the freestanding sign. There's places all over Wakulla County that if we forced it, they're going to be non-conforming. Now maybe they could leave it there, but if that storm that blew through last night, if it took a lot of these signs down, they would have to come in compliance with the ordinance, and I think some of them just did not make sense. And so
what was the major thing that you like in this proposed sign ordinance?
I like the change. You've got a requirement that you can only have one sign. Well, you may have multiple businesses in a location, and you might need more than one sign. I like that. I like the fact that the engineering, I believe the way our ordinance reads today, it's anything 32 square feet or above, you've got to have an engineer sign off. So you've got to sign the size of one sheet of plywood, and you've got to have an engineer sign that off.
That's me.
Another big one is it took away the requirement for murals. You drive down to Big Daddy's Pizza in Oclotney Bay, they've got a mural on the side of the building. That's non-conforming. That's and this it would be conforming.
Yeah.
In this case, they are only attaching paint to the wall. We don't need an engineer. We don't need and it's beautiful. It's in good repair. It's current fresh paint, and so this loosens that restriction. So to me, I like this. I would certainly support it. But it's important to note that all we're approving tonight is for this to move forward and to be scheduled. And so we can certainly pick this thing apart and come back at a later date and make recommendations and make changes if we see there's a better way to do this.
In the area of Crawfordville where the signage was tightened up, did that meet do you like that?
I can't say that I like that, but if that's a trade-off to get more common sense in this, I could go with it. I mean, remember this thing passed 4-1 last time. I voted against the entire ordinance as it stood.
Right. Yeah. And I think I don't have my notes. I have to go back and look at the combinations of the signs, the roof sign and the freestanding sign, and look at that again. But all in all, I don't think it's much different. I think the mural thing was definitely a good thing to have, but I don't see the other changes of being outside of that 6-foot height and the size of that engineering requirement. There wasn't much in here to do, so I don't know that we really...
Should be easy then.
Should be non-controversial.
Should be easy.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Also, Commissioners, just to let you know, not on this subject. We're having issues that we're getting some texts from some folks that we're not, sound's not working. It's working in here, and it's working as far as he's concerned. It must be with Comcast, so we're trying to check into that.
Did it start when I started to speak?
Coincidentally, it did. No, I'm just kidding. That hasn't worked.
So do we need to just speak louder, or is it not working at all?
It's not working at all. On the TVs, they're showing us up there, but live feed.
Okay.
We're good in here. It's just there's something wrong on the Comcast.
We can hold up murals?
Yeah, you can hold up murals and use the new sign ordinance.
We don't allow signs on placards.
I was just letting you know in case you get any comments.
All right. Thank you. Let's see. Next, we'll go to tab number 7.
That would be me, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. This item, I bring this item to you on behalf of all of the county employees that work for the BoCC, the Clerk of Court, Tax Collector, Property Appraiser, and Sheriff's Department. When I first came on board, one of the things I promised those folks is if they would all work together and hunker down and be patient, we'd get there, we'd be able to get some raises on a regular basis, but I promised them we would not do that until we could sustain those raises.
Cost of living adjustment, not a raise.
Cost of living adjustment. Anyway, I promised them that, but the biggest word was sustainability. Is that I would not recommend a raise until we saw where this county could sustain a raise, because that's a COLA. That's year over year. So we've met that. Therefore, this agenda item requests board approval of a 2% cost of living allocation for all board.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Any citizens to speak? None?
Mr. Chairman, I think David has talked all this about this, but I think it may be appropriate maybe at the next meeting, we need to address his salary also. I rewatched the video back when he was hired. I think Jerry and I were the only ones on the board, and he was hired at the minimum salary that was set for that position. There was a lot of talk about big learning curve, and he was hired at base level, and he's been here 4 years now, and he's more than exceeded my expectations. So if you don't mind, you're the chairman, if you would get with him and come back with some sort of recommendation, if any.
Okay. Very good.
So, discussion on this item?
Yes, sir.
Oh, great. Okay, so, Mr. Edwards, on the 2% COLA, when was the last time our employees, board employees, received the 2% COLA?
2009. That was 2% COLA was well before that. That was 1% raise. It was in
So in 2009, it was a 1%?
Yes.
Right. That's after they came off of the, was that after they came off of furloughs and things like that?
That was prior to furloughs.
Okay,
Then
so
they
that
went
was
on
during that,
furloughs.
right.
Then they had 3% taken.
So it's been a
from them.
bunch of time where they haven't even kept up with their cost of living. Forget about raise.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Health insurance increases, they were absorbed, right? Or were they absorbed by the board?
Back then, they may have been absorbed by the board.
They were absorbed. I think those were absorbed by the board. But now also understand during that time frame, there was also a 3%. The employees had to start paying 3% out of their FRS fund.
Correct. Correct. So actually, they were moving backwards.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
As far as what they had to take home.
Yes.
Right. And then, so I see here on this graph that's on this item, it also has other. It has Sheriff's Department. Is that 2% COLA applied to the Sheriff's Department as well?
The 2% COLA has actually been corrected with the Sheriff's Department. Where is my?
I spoke to the sheriff, and he told me that what he's looking for is a raise for the folks who have not recently received a raise.
So that would lead to the question of, when was the last time the Sheriff's Department got raises or got COLAs compared to how the employees of our Board of County Commissioners have got raises or have gotten COLAs? Could you answer that for me also?
The Sheriff's Department, some of the employees at the Sheriff's Department have received, many of the employees have received raises over the past 2 years. And prior to that, there was, right at the transition time between Sheriff Crum and Sheriff Creel, there was at least $125,000 was spread out over the employees as well.
That was the quote one-time COLA.
Right. So total, if everything is passed through as of right now, if everything was to pass through at the rate, this is $60,000 for the Sheriff's Department. That is, and what I understand now as well from someone else at the Sheriff's Department, that's a COLA for everybody. And that would be a $60,000 this year and a $120,000 increase they will have to absorb next year. So all in all, over the past 3 years, there's been a $690,000 increase in the Sheriff's Department expenditures and salaries.
So what I'm sort of speaking to here is that I see the Board of County Commissioner employees as being the red-headed stepchild. Am I allowed to say that? Or,
that's right. I think all the BoCC employees would agree with you there.
I didn't want to pick on redheads, but you know, I'm more concerned of getting the people that have really suffered throughout this caught up to speed, and then take a look and see if there's still money in the pot to do the things that we absolutely have to do, such as make sure our fund balance is right, make sure the constitutional fund balances are right. I'm just very leery of just going carte blanche and just treating this as a whole, that we might, and we have the consequences year after year of funding that.
I should. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
we already called for
Currently in the general fund and in the funds of the other constitutionals, except for the sheriff's department, our general fund could sustain the raises. That's the reason I said I would not give a raise until it was sustainable, no matter whether there were whatever it was, but they had to be sustainable. The sheriff's department, what we're suggesting that you do is pull that from the fine and forfeiture fund. They can chew into the fine and forfeiture fund if they so desire to give these raises and not come from the general fund, but also the county cannot sustain these raises if the sheriff's department increases their budget next year.
Which would be the likely assumption if we're going to say, okay, go ahead with this, and then...
But no, that's up to them. That's their call.
Right. If we make it specific that the fine and forfeiture fund would be
they can have the choice of diving into the fine and forfeiture fund. If not, if they want for these raises, you can authorize that based on this dollar amount. But at the end of the day, like I said, they can't come back with a raise next year and us be able to sustain any of these raises. An increase in their budget.
So you submitted, this agenda item had $32,000 in projected raises for the sheriff, and you're saying you got
60 now.
60,000
Right.
as of today.
What's
As of
the
today.
general fund total?
That would be today's effect, half year. 100, and the effect of that would be 120,000 next year.
What's the general fund? Did it change from 48.6?
The general fund is what we had that
Changed
right.
with the sheriff's department. They revised their number?
Well, it was a misunderstanding on the spreadsheet, if I
Okay.
may. It was the spreadsheet led you to believe it wasn't this. It wasn't anything they did. It was just they created a spreadsheet and we interpreted the spreadsheet, and we interpreted it wrong, but we got that right.
He can take that number though. He doesn't have to give it 2% across the board. He can say, I'm going to give 3% to these guys that haven't had a raise.
Sure he can.
I understand. Trust me what you're saying. But I don't want to get involved in telling him how much he needs to pay this guy or that guy either.
Well, and I don't want to be involved with the county being in a situation of, here's their budget for next year, you have to give us another $120,000 because this is what we just did last year.
Right.
So I
That's
don't
the
want to be
reason.
in
That's
that.
the reason
made
we're
that pretty clear.
suggesting. That's the reason we're suggesting that it come out of the fine and forfeiture fund. That you guys, when you pass this, that you will allow them to dip into the fine and forfeiture fund for the $60,000 this year for the raise. But at the end of the day, they can't be coming back with a significant increase next year.
I'll amend my motion to reflect that then.
Well, I spoke to the sheriff personally, and he told me that he's looking for raises for the folks that have not received raises, so he can catch the ones up.
That's his
Just
business.
like our county staff, a lot of them have not have raises, a lot of deputies have not have raises either. And I'm with you, that I'm not interested in getting into setting, income policy. That's not our role. He's elected to do that.
Well, I amended my motion. Who seconded it?
Oh.
Jerry did?
Read that back. What is the motion?
Well, I amended my motion.
It keeps moving.
I amended my motion to approve based on what David said of it coming out of the fine and forfeiture fund.
Mhm.
And I don't want to speak to next year's
The
budget
sheriff's department.
in this thing. Yeah. Is that all right with you?
I'll make a second on that.
All right.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, let's see. Next, looking at tab number 8.
Okay. Yes, Commissioners, this is request board approval resolution requesting FDOT to extend the Ocklackney Bay Bike Trail Phase 5B into the city of Sopchop.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any citizens? Discussion amongst commissioners.
I'm in full favor of this.
Very good.
Too bad Laura left, David. She'd be happy with this.
Mm-hmm.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We pulled item number 9, so we'll jump to number 10.
Item number 10 is request board approval to purchase.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one clarification. The agenda item currently talks about an exemption to the purchasing policy, which is used equipment with a value under $25,000. I think that the more appropriate exemption would be a sole source exemption because this is unique equipment available from only one vendor.
That's used.
Correct.
That's used.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. So we do not need a modification to our motion, correct? That's just a point of clarification.
Yeah, I just wanted, that's what hopefully your motion is based on.
Okay. Very good. Well, we have a first and second.
Yes.
Any citizens? Discussion.
I think that's the first time Jerry and Howard ever been first and second together. So
That's
just
right.
write this day down.
Let's play that video back too.
There you go.
Hearing no discussion, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Next item, request board approval of a resolution requesting the Florida Legislature to place a 3% growth cap
To
on...
approve.
Second.
Second.
Any citizens to be? Nope. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. That ends our general business. No public hearings, no planning and zoning, commissioner agenda items, Commissioner Merritt.
This is something I talked about at the last meeting under discussion. It's not what you'd call a sexy item, but I'm requesting that we direct staff to modify the commercial office zoning district to allow funeral homes as a principal use in the zone.
I make a motion to approve.
No second.
Well, actually, I made the motion. I think Jerry seconded it.
I
Say
second.
it well.
Okay. We have one citizen, Mr. Harry Dutton.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. In full transparency, I'm not here to comment on Commissioner Merrick's agenda item, but I thought it was the appropriate time to address the board on a planning and zoning issue. If it is...
Actually, it would not be.
Okay.
You're
Citizens
welcome
to
to
be
do
heard.
that.
Okay.
Citizens to be heard.
I
You
could redirect
you
my
want us to just
comment.
change this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we have no further citizens, further discussion.
Yeah, I would think that if this was going to move forward and that the change should that the inclusion should be under the CO as a conditional use.
I kind of want to see what the planning commission comes out of that, but this will just direct them to move forward. But I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. And that was your only item. Commissioner Harden has been tabled. Commissioner Kessler.
Okay, thank you. So, this is a request for approval of proclamation declaring April 2015 as Water Conservation Month in Wakulla County. And I'll just go through to the agenda proclamation if I could and read it briefly. It's short. Wakulla County Proclamation declaring April 2015 as the Water Conservation Month in Wakulla County, whereas clean, safe, and sustainable water resources and supplies are vital to the people, environment, and economy of Wakulla County, and whereas the Northwest Florida Water Management District is working with the state of Florida, other water management districts, local governments, and water supply utilities to ensure the continued welfare of the residents and natural systems of Wakulla County, and whereas Northwest Florida Water Management District encourages residents to help support the district's efforts to ensure clean and reliable water supply, which is vital to the healthy economy and community. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners that Wakulla County hereby proclaim this month, April 2015, as Water Conservation Month, and calls upon each resident, visitor, and business to help protect our county's water resources through common sense water conservation measures and increased awareness of the need to conserve water.
Second.
Any citizens? Additional discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, let's see. Next, my first item is the proclamation declaring May 2015 Mental Health Awareness Month. We heard that earlier during awards and presentation.
I need to reread it.
So, entertain a motion if we would
I'll
like
make
to.
that motion.
Second.
All right. Any citizens? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next, have been asked for a letter of support for Capital City Youth Services. They came before us last year. We voted unanimously to support that, and they're just back trying to bring that
So moved.
grant back.
Second.
Citizens? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Was this something that required a 5-0 vote because it was added on in the end, just technicality?
Yes,
Okay.
good point. I meant to say that at the beginning, but
Did it get
yeah,
it?
it was not a properly agended
I
item.
think you got it, yeah.
It came, yeah, it did. Next, County Attorney.
I'm not going to sit here and argue that right now.
I just have one quick announcement. A few meetings back, we approved a settlement with the Department of Health concerning that complaint regarding an ALS incident. We recently received the final order from Department of Health after submitting our paperwork showing that we had purchased the equipment, and that matter is fully resolved.
Okay.
And that equipment purchase was having to do with record keeping, I think, or how
Yeah,
they wrote?
they purchased some tablets in
Okay.
order to keep electronic records and also to store EKG results
Okay.
and other medical data electronically.
Very good. Anything further? County Administrator?
Yes, I have a few things. We'll be going through mid-year reviews as well as budget meetings this weekend, next week. So if you would like to attend any of those, just please let me know. I'd be glad to accommodate you guys to sit in. I've already got a schedule of those. Secondly, Community Center. We'll be bringing an agenda item to you next meeting on May 4th. Currently, we have had discussions with WCCY, and WCCY has expressed interest in continuing the ounce grant, but they just want to be an ounce grant provider there and just work ounce, not do the rentals and all the other stuff that they were doing. So we're working on a contract now that hopefully we'll have to those guys this week, and may have it before you guys for 21st Century and WCCY, so that all we would be the provider, the landlord, if you may, and those would be the two providers. And so we're working on that. That's a little bit of a different twist, but that sounds good. Also, we've had some discussions with Northwest Florida or North Florida Child Development Center, and right now we're going to put them on hold for right now until we get all this worked out, because there's plenty of time to add them into the equation later, but we got to figure out how that can work. And they've expressed interest in coming forward as far as bringing in their kindergarten program. We just got to look at the space and all that stuff. So right now we're going to get this settled before we move anything, before we add another component to that, if we do it at that point in time.
Okay.
Say, David using his hands so much reminds us of Miss Arts, doesn't it, Jerry? Go ahead.
The airport master plan, we'll be bringing that for you guys. Staff is going to be putting out an RFQ for the contractor to do all of the work at the airport, as far as all the exploratory wetland issues, geological issues, etc., that we have there.
Please tell me we don't need to vote on anything on that.
Only whenever we get the final person the company that we recommend using. Okay. Also, to give you an update, the HUD Jacksonville office had contacted us a couple of weeks ago that they wanted us to change up the companies that runs our Section 8 program. Currently, we use GSG Government Services Group. They're recommending that we go with. At first, they recommended we go back to talk to Tallahassee, and I said, well, we opened that door one time, it was closed on us, you guys go back and look at it, and I said, you guys bring us somebody that could run the program.
This is Section 8.
Didn't we try to bid that out?
Yeah, and we tried to bid it out, and there's nobody that'll take it. So they've come back, and I'm having a meeting tomorrow with North Central Florida Housing Authority, and they actually do Taylor County's housing, as well as the county south, and they're willing to take us on. But I'm going to have the discussions with them, and we'll kind of see where it takes us.
People we have now, they don't want it anymore?
Well, it's not that they don't want it anymore, it's just HUD's not willing to give us any more money if we don't give it out to
HUD
somebody.
doesn't like them.
HUD doesn't like what's going on. There have been some issues, and we've got to, we've had some issues, and they've had issues with HUD, so therefore, and the good thing about this is this would alleviate us doing it would take care of, we wouldn't have to do checks, we wouldn't have to do some of the stuff, so it would be helpful
You
for
just
us.
pass it through anyway.
Pass it through, that's right.
Section 8 is the rent subsidy payments, right?
That's right. But I mean, we'll still use the same thing. Also, our sewer treatment plant, we had to amend our PER. I told you guys about that a little while ago.
Preliminary engineering report.
Preliminary engineering report, and that was submitted to USDA-RD. So therefore, we should have that approved. But also to let you know, the engineering plans are beginning to wrap up, and we'll be going for permitting on the wastewater treatment plant anytime now.
There you go.
Okay, that's it.
All right. Next, citizens to be heard, Mr. Dutton. Now will be your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I want to take this opportunity. My name's Harry Dutton. I live at 63 Ball Court in the platted subdivision known as Kenmore Estates. Kenmore Estates has had its tranquil lifestyle turned upside down. Over the last couple of months, we've learned and have been dealing with what is called a halfway house operating in our community that houses hardcore violent felons and sexual offenders of minor children. It's unbelievable what's taking place. We're basically going to be the face of what is definitely an emerging issue for our county. So as a concerned citizen of the county, a community member, a father of a minor child right now, a husband of a wife who is in a perpetual state of distress, we've got to do something about this. And so my point of standing before you tonight is to ask you to figure out a way within your process to bring this issue forward, to take action in terms of a county ordinance that would address this for the long term, so that we can heal ourselves in our neighborhood and yet prevent this from happening in all the other wonderful subdivisions and communities that we have in our county. There's a model to follow. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Between myself and other concerned members of the community, we've been working closely with planning and zoning folks, which have done a wonderful job in helping us. Can't say enough about the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Charlie Creel's been fantastic. I know each of you have been reached out to by at least one member of our neighborhood to try to start helping us, shape how we need to head down the road for this. And through this work, we found, again, Lake County has found a wonderful solution for this, and we'd like to, through your leadership, provide that information to county staff, use it as a model to come back to present to you all for your consideration at your next commission meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Ralph, is that your district?
Mm-hmm.
Are you intending to bring something back?
At this point, we need to gather facts. I haven't made a conclusion. I've been very clear. I've told them that we need to gather all the facts and figure out where we stand with it. Yep. That is all of our citizens to be heard. Discussion items amongst commissioners. Commissioner Kessler, you are scheduled, so we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we had a resolution proclamation on conservation of water, because water is really necessary for our survival and our prosperity and our tourist industry. And the low-hanging fruit is conservation. But while we may be ignoring the elephant in the room, which may be coming to our state, which is fracking. And so far there's been no shown safe method to assure non-pollution of our waters and disruption of our environment with fracking. So I'm just, again, ask the commissioners to possibly think about one of you bringing this forward for a discussion type of agenda item where we might want to make a resolution in some form relating to the topic of fracking. The next is the proposed Panacea Incorporation, where we, as I understand it, where we stand right now is the bill has made it through all of its required committees and now I can't use the word scheduled because I don't know the right terminology, but it's supposed to go to the House to be heard.
For floor vote.
For a floor vote, yes, and then the Senate, it doesn't have to go through any committees. It'll just, if it survives that, it'll go over to the Senate for a vote. So I'm just watching this. I think the board has expressed itself as far as what it, considers that this is not revenue neutral, that this is going to cost Panacea and the citizens of the county money. And then the one other thing I had spoken with, and maybe others on the board have spoken with citizens from Ball Court. I understand we're in the still in the information gathering stages, but this is a very concerning topic, and it has two sides to every sword. But I think that when we're looking at a residential neighborhood and we think about Wakulla County, we need to do all we can to preserve and protect the integrity of our residential neighborhoods.
That's it. Anything else? Randy? That's it.
3 items. Item 1, Mr. Chairman, when you get back with David, I think Howard and I, you only have 2 evaluations done this past year, right? Is it okay if they go ahead and do one to help Ralph with his thing? I just encourage y'all to go ahead and, Howard did, I did mine, but anyway, that would help Ralph kind of come up with something. Louis had asked me, with the funeral home thing, he said, hey, another thing while you're at it, we have people come in all the time wanting to do what? Light manufacturing?
Yes, light manufacturing and agriculture.
In agricultural zone property, which would be cabinets, making a kayaks, or something like along those lines, right?
Yeah, we also had, what do you call them, the awnings for signs. And,
right. Just people wanting to do stuff on large pieces of property that would be considered light manufacturing, and he had asked if we could move forward with making that a conditional use, right?
Yes.
In agricultural districts.
I don't have heartburn over that,
okay,
but I'm waiting to see the whole thing come forward.
I understand, but can I get a vote to direct him to bring something back then?
You got it.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we direct staff to bring back allowing light manufacturing and ag.
I second it.
Go.
Okay. Right. This was not an agenda item. Any citizens like to speak on this? Hearing none.
I have a question though. You're saying light manufacturing and agriculture zoning.
As a conditional use, which means you have to come back with a site plan. It has to be approved by the Planning Commission.
And by the board, or just
no,
by the
not by the board. It stops at the Planning Commission.
How much? That should be easier.
I guess that would be
making crab traps.
That,
would be a good Tennessee example.
That gets a little delicate if the manufacturing facility is next to your house.
Depends on the definition of light manufacturing.
Yeah, he's going to bring back an agenda item, and I think we could probably straighten out any concerns at that time. This just gets the ball rolling.
And it's conditional use.
And it's agricultural.
Yeah. So if it's agricultural, generally property has to be 10 acres or more to be agricultural.
So you can be 5 acres in zoned ag, correct, Louis?
Yeah, and we would make it conditional, so it would depend on, where you're located, how much land, what you're doing, so all that could be considered.
You don't want somebody in Brook Forest making with a full-scale cabinet shop, in other words, but if you got a couple 100 acres or something like my kinfolk out there do out in Woodville, probably do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Well, they could also come back and ask for zoning, could they not?
Correct. This is just allowing a conditional use, and if it's something wacko, I'm sure the planning department would deny it anyway.
Yeah, I can go along with that.
Or louder than a tractor.
This is just to direct staff to look into it, initiate it. It would still have to go through plan, zone, and public hearings.
Yes, and it have to go back to us for us to even vote to allow to do it.
I'm in favor.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Next item, and I always think about these things after the fact, on the liquor store issue, I'm not going to beat it to death, but another good analogy I thought that if we in our minds instead of the applicant losing, what if the applicant had have won, and it was the losing side coming to appeal it? Our standard, Heather, you can back me up on this, our conclusion should have been the same in either case, whether they had won or whether they had lost, right? Because it was based on, did they make the decisions on
Competence.
competent? So it shouldn't have mattered to us whether it was the applicant appealing the decision or whether it was the losing side appealing the decision. Our decision on the Planning Commission's decision should have been the same, right?
Well, if you had come to the conclusion that they either had or didn't have
correct,
and I think I said that at the meeting. Yeah.
Well, I totally agree with that, and if you'll remember, I didn't even take a position on it until I actually voted.
Right.
You know, my point was, let's deliberate the evidence, and let's point to the evidence and say, this is what we're hanging our hat on. This is where we're saying that they did or did not meet the burden of proof. And so that's why I voted against it, because I feel that we didn't go through that process.
And I'm not disagreeing with your vote. I'm just telling you what I thought later kind of explained it a little better in my mind.
Matter of fact, I didn't even get to speak my mind. You know, I mean, the fact that the question was called on it, and I know that has happened before, but in my opinion, since you brought it up, I wasn't going to bring it up tonight. Since you brought it up, this was not just a normal agenda item. This was an appeals board. And imagine if the appeals board was a court and the jury was not allowed to deliberate the evidence. And I think that was a dangerous situation when we called the question and we prematurely stopped the meeting, when I made it clearly known that I had concerns, and I wanted to review those concerns and deliberate those, and you guys may have convinced me one way or the other. And so that's my concern.
Water under the bridge.
I agreed with I agreed with Chairman Thomas. For whatever reason, those items that were objected to, the statements on those items were all a matter of opinion. That's, there was no fact there. It was just a matter of opinion. Now, if it had been a fact that there'll be 19 people killed at the intersection, that's a fact.
Just not relitigating. I just wanted to explain how I
Sorry about
looked
that.
at it in my mind.
You got two more minds there, didn't you?
Horses out of the barn now.
That's all I get, Mr. Chairman.
I got about 9 items I'd like to go through here real quick. David, lightning hit a tree in the park. There's a pine tree in your new park up there that lightning has stripped from the top to the bottom, so you're going to have to take out one more tree.
One more tree.
Okay. Yeah. I'd also like to compliment David on our fire apparatus that we voted for tonight. Those items we needed 66 items. Well, let's just run the numbers by 60. That was a total of $330,000 worth of cost at $5,500 each. Our great administrator more than saved his salary for the next 3 years.
Chief, probably.
Chief.
Our chief administrator just saved his salary for the next 3 years because he bought those same apparatus that had just 2 years less use availability for $90,000.
At least he approved the purchase of it.
That's right.
Saving the county $240,000. What an administrator.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I must
Good
not
job,
take the credit for all that. It was Chief Morgan. I'm just the bearer of good news.
Sorry about that, Chief Morgan. Congratulations on what you
But
do.
Chief Morgan does that on a regular basis, and so does other staff. So.
Almost a year ago or so forth, I was told basically that we needed to repair the Panacea Women's Club and whatever. Well, we did repair that probably a year or so ago. That women's club, to the people of Panacea and to the county, is in good repair. It's available for rental, so let's use it. It's there and it's just sitting and nobody's using it.
We've been renting it some.
Have you been renting it some? Well, maybe we can rent it a lot more.
Well, it's picking up. It's
okay.
picking up.
We need to rent that facility. We've had about every 6 months we have somebody come to us saying that they bought a piece of property that the Planning Commission will not give them a permit. And it's my understanding that Florida is the only state in the country that will register a piece of property with the clerk. The clerk will send it to the tax assessor, and we will be taxing a piece of property that is on record. And the buyer can't do anything with it because it was illegally divided. We need to, I would like to see us bring forth a motion to our representatives to clarify that item, because it's a no-brainer. Why in the world does it happen? It can be corrected. I'm not in a position.
We agree with you 100%.
Well, then, could we direct staff to bring us a...
I don't think it'll affect session this year, but
Yeah.
it's a
I think
great
it's probably
idea.
something we need to
I
bring
think
up
you
later.
should, Jerry, maybe suggest it to our FAC representative, right?
If we have if it's
Bring it
a
up to
Florida
their legislative
association, yeah.
priorities.
I
or
think
whatever.
that would be
We
good.
can. I mean, I don't know if it's a big enough problem statewide. Maybe Heather would know.
It's got to be.
I mean,
We're
we
a
can-
little bitty place.
We can try to get it on the priority list for this year for FAC and for
Yeah.
Small County Coalition.
It's a no-brainer.
That's been talked about at our county managers' meetings.
And,
Talked about
Or
already.
get Halsey to bring it up.
Yeah.
we have a lot of properties in the county that fall up underneath that designation. There was a 10-acre tract that gets divided into 5 acres, but because it wasn't gone through the planning and zoning, when they go to get a permit, they can't do anything.
Well, worse yet is somebody that has 100 acres and they cut out 10 acres for that kid, 10 acres for that kid, and then when you get to the third kid, they can cut it out and give them a deed to it. They come back later, oh no, that's a subdivision. You can't do anything with it. That's the real bad part. And they may own it for 10 years.
Is that the third cut or the second cut?
I think it's 3 or more, right?
It's the second. 3 or more?
3 or more.
Okay.
And I think it ought to be if it's 3 that have common roads, you know, like we did the one in Tiger Hammock. You had 3 lots, they're all a front of public road, they have no shared resources, utilities, any of that stuff. So I wouldn't, you know, that shouldn't be defined as a subdivision in my opinion, but statute defines it that way.
You're more looking for a way to catch this in the process before it goes too far, right?
Yes. Yes, I don't want, I'd really rather not see the people who buy those properties have to come up here all of a sudden, because we get the heat. And we should get the heat for letting something like this sit around when we can, it absolutely should be a simple process. One other item I've got is that my family was down over the last week. The sunshine, we had 85-degree temperatures, beautiful sunshine. They were able to kayak the Wakulla River, sail in Dickerson Bay, ride the bike trail, and go to Mark's private beach out off of Ball Point. No, not Ball Point. Off of Masha Sand. Yeah, you don't know where you are. Yeah, anyway, they were able to do all of that stuff and ride the bike trail. They rode the bike trail. It took them 1 hour to go from Sopchoppy down to the end of the bike trail. That's very good. Richard?
I've got 2 things. I think one thing, it'll be really good whenever the bike trail can begin at the depot in Sopchoppy and someone be able to bike all the way to the beach from Sopchoppy. I think that'll be tourism, something that could benefit tourism both in Sopchoppy and the Ochlockonee Bay. There are people using that trail, you know, and I think that'd be a good thing. The other thing I wanted to ask was, what was the board's direction concerning the Boy Scout that was doing the Eagle Scout project to honor that veteran? He wanted to do it in Clarkville. Did the board give the final go ahead to do it in Panacea? Because I don't think he's begun it.
Panacea.
Yeah. It was at Woolly Park. I don't think he's begun it yet, and I think he's still holding out to have an opportunity to do it in Clarkville, but he's running out of. He's got to have it completed by August.
Now remember Cody come up here and made a presentation, right, David? And the board said
Yeah.
he got approved to build in Panacea.
Yeah,
Was not approved to build in Clarkville.
Okay, that's just what I want to ask, because he hasn't started building yet, because he's still holding out to doing a Clarkville, but he's running out of time. So if the board is still giving direction to Woolly Park, then I will relay that.
He better giddy up.
I will relay that back, you know.
I spoke to his dad a couple of weeks ago, and I think he prefers to build in Hudson Park.
He prefers to build, but
and he wanted to be on the south side, that the women's club actually owns that property. And so I don't know that we could approve that, even if we wanted to.
I think he went to the women's club, and I think that there's some standing there that they weren't going to let any monuments or something
Yeah.
in
He told
their
me
area.
he was going to reach
so-
out to the women's club.
Yeah, he did, you know, and I know that hopefully that we can have a park at some point dedicated solely to veterans, but I think that will come after the fact of his window of needing to. So basically, if he wants to, he needs to build it in Woolly Park to feed it.
And there was all kind of releases right? He needs to call Cody.
Yep, call Cody.
Okay, all right, I'll direct him to.
Anything further?
That's it.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So move.
Thank you.
We are adjourned. Thank you for coming out tonight.